What has changed most significantly for good and bad?
What has changed for good or bad? Where would you begin? How could you begin? I mean, basically, well, you could take The Irishman. For 9 years, we couldn't get financing. It was something that De Niro and I hadn't made a picture since 1995, Casino. And over the years, we wanted to make another film, and then we never kind of met on certain subject matter. And things changed. You know, life goes on, and we looked around, and we're still interested in working with each other. Long story. Bottom line is that we get to be 72, 73, 74 years old. And he comes up with this book that Eric Roth gave him, describes the character to me, becomes extremely passionate and somewhat emotional about it. And I said, well, that might be it. And then I read the book, and I said, well, this is what we'll do. That was 2009. Got Steve Zalian involved, worked out the structure, worked everything out, and really couldn't get the financing with him and Al and Joe. Could not get the financing. So he went off, did his work. I went off and did some films. And when the time came around, any possibility of them playing younger was out of the question. It was gone. So we looked at each other. So I wound up, I want to shoot Silence. I had to go and make Silence, you know. And so that's when Pablo Hellman mentioned the de-aging, the youthification, which is something we'd heard about, but it was almost like science fiction to us. You know, by the time we did the test after shooting Silence, we did a test of De Niro doing Goodfellas, scene in Goodfellas, and we did him again, and we played it back 2 months later, and we said, let's take the risk, let's try for it. But of course, that comes with a price tag.
Right.
You know, then it was even more money in terms of the budget, in terms of that. So ultimately, what happened was that we still could not get the picture financed, and I got a call from Rick Yarn, said, are you interested in Netflix? And I said, well, what's the story there? And they explained it. Financially, the film would be complete backing, willing to take the risks with the computer generated imagery, or you call it that, but you know, it's more complicated. And certainly the main thing for me was creative freedom. The trade-off is that it's a streamer. Okay. Yeah. However, I said, but it will be shown in theaters, right? By that point, you know, I've been at this like 47 years or something. So at that point, I've had a few films, and we mentioned this the other day, I've had a few films play 1 or 2 weeks in the theater and taken out.
Right. Yeah.
Including, especially King of Comedy.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it lasted a week and a half, they took it out.
Is that true?
Never shown again, you know?
You did not go ahead and produce Joker. Your partner, Emma, is the producer on it. Why did you decide not to produce?
Personal reasons, I think, for me, also scheduling. I mean, quite honestly, Taxi Driver and King of Comedy and Last Temptation of Christ.
In other words,
My time, those were my fights.
Yes, that's
Taxi
what I
Driver
wanted.
wasn't a fight. We did it, and then there were some consequences to be paid at this point in time. Then we went ahead and did King of Comedy, and we were attacked for that. And the film was considered the flop of the year, and the new show, Entertainment Tonight.
Oh, God.
On New Year's Eve, I was putting my tie on, and I'd look over in this TV and it said, now the flop of the year, and a curtain opened. It was King of Comedy.
God.
And everything had turned, all of Hollywood had turned against that kind of filmmaking, really. For other reasons, too.
Do you think in a funny way, because I mean, I think we all romanticize sort of, you know, the sort of, you know, the 70s, and even early 80s, perhaps. In a funny way, do you think King of Comedy would have done better 15 years later with independent
Probably.
studios, because they wouldn't, it would have been like A24, these companies would have known what to do with it.
Exactly. However, 1978, 79 Apocalypse Now, right, at UA. Then Raging Bull, 1980. 10 days later, Heaven's Gate opens up. It was the end. Wow. I'm not saying Heaven's Gate's a bad film. I'm just saying they finished this off. They had enough of these crazed auteurs, and everybody, including the critical community, particularly the New York Times. One review, the film closed one night. Wow. So that was the end of it all. And then you had other films that were being made that were, you know, wonderful sci-fi, fantasy things, and people wanted to see those. We go ahead and make King of Comedy. We just made Raging Bull, so when people went to see it, they expected De Niro as Jake LaMotta again.
Right.
And that changed things, you see.
Yeah.
And at that point, also the studio had changed.
Right.
So they said,
It's
we're not
always
doing
hard,
it.
yeah.
Gone, picture, finished.
Right.
So I went and I tried to do Last Temptation of Christ. It was 1983. I spent the whole year here And 6 weeks before shooting started, it was canceled. At which point I said, I think I should leave.
So when you said you had death threats when you did Last Take.
Yes. I went through it all. I can't go.
When you
Yeah.
say you don't want to go through the fight, did you mean you didn't want to go through that again with Joker, or you didn't want to
No,
go
it's
through
an
the fight
issue.
with the
It's a
studio?
personal issue about the kind of picture I want to make at this point in my life. I'm more comfortable with this picture, Irishman. I'm more comfortable there. You know.
Hi, I'm Lulu Wong.
My name is Fernando Morales.
I'm Greta Gerwig.
I am Noah Baumbach.
Thank you for watching the Hollywood Reporter
The Hollywood Reporter Roundtables.
Roundtables on YouTube.
On YouTube.